Hello, my name's Narendran, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 76, and I'll be talking to Donnie Boivin. He's an entrepreneur and serves as a CEO and founder of Success Champions and Success Champion Networking. Donnie is considered one of the leading global minds on sales, business development, and business growth. He's described as the first person to make sales and business development relatable and human. Donnie is a community builder at heart. He builds champions. Today, he helps small business owners leverage sales and business development to grow, then scale their business through his global brand, Success Champion Networking. He's part of Success Champion family of companies in which include Badass Business Summit and Champion Table Mastermind. In addition to running multiple businesses, Donnie runs a full working farm with goats, chickens, ducks, turkeys, and geese. His podcast, Growth Mode, ranking amongst the top podcasts globally. He is a 5-minute best-selling author and highly sought-after public speaker. Hello and welcome to Donnie. How are you, Donnie?
I'm freaking amazing. Thank you for letting me hang out with you. It's been a fun conversation. As we geared up to do this, I've already enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to delve into some of your experiences and the magic that you create, not only in who you are and who you've become, but also what happened at 22 and the journey beyond that.
For sure. For sure. Where do you want me to start?
How did you become who you are today?
Love the question. So I grew up in a blue collar household. My dad was a truck driver. Mom worked in a factory, actually a blue jean factory. And dad retired from Xerox as a technician working on copiers. Mom retired as a receptionist working for an eye doctor. And we grew up in a household where you just went, you got a job, you worked for other people, and that was the life you lived. And I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. So at 22, I got out and found myself quickly in a sales role. Spent 20 years in straight commission sales, and the crazy journey and ride that came along with that. My last career was with an organization called Sandler Training. And in the US, I supposedly became one of the top sales trainers in the country. I'm not really sure what that means, other than I'm really good at flapping my gums in front of a room. Turned 40, and it was the first time in my life I'd heard of this idea that you could be this thing called an entrepreneur, or you could start your own business. I had no clue. And so Sandler is a franchise company. And in my particular franchise, I'd picked up business partner because of how big I grew the company. And in September of 2017, me and my then business partner went out to dinner. And during that dinner, he said something that forever changed my life. And what he said to me was, Donnie, thank God you're my retirement plan. And he said it out of love. And as soon as he said it, I instantly gave it right back, right? Because I do still love the guy. We still talk. We're still amazing friends. It was just a very poor choice of words, you know? And so after that dinner, I sat in my truck, looked in my rearview mirror and said, dude, what the hell are you doing? You were literally somebody else's retirement plan. Well, 15 days later, I walked away from it all. Wow. It was also the first time I told my wife what I was doing. Fun conversation there, let me tell you.
Yes.
And then within 24 hours of walking away, two attorneys showed up on my farm and
Mm,
served me my non-compete papers. I
okay.
couldn't talk about sales, business development, sales management anywhere in the world.
Wow. Okay.
So I started off as a success coach, which to this day, I don't know what a success coach is.
Right.
It's obviously some sort of just business whore that just says yes to anything.
Okay.
And 6 months trying to build that success coach business, I
Mm,
unfortunately stood on the back porch of my farm, looked my wife dead in the eyes, and said, "Babe, we're about to lose everything we own."
mm,
Mortgage was 3 months behind. Her Jeep got repossessed.
mm,
She had to go in that Monday morning and actually cash in her 401k to
right.
save the farm, get her Jeep back. And she looked at me in that moment and said, "Get off your butt and go sell something."
Right.
And what I realized is that's the one thing that I wasn't doing, was
Mm,
actually going out and selling. Found podcasting in May of 2018 and launched my first show. 5 months
right.
later, that show became number 22 in the world. And now I
Wow.
was sitting next to all the people that I used to be listening to. My
Wow.
non-compete came up in September of 2018. And so I had the momentum of podcasting. Now I could talk about sales. Flash forward to where I am now, and I
Mhm.
operate 3 companies, 2 top podcasts in the world, 5 best-selling books, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. What a beautiful story,
Thank you,
because
love.
not only from the perspective of being at the top of your game in your sales role, working at that company, but also being the opposite,
Mm.
feeling like the rug's been pulled from with under you just because of that sweet little sentence that somebody had said.
Yep, for sure. It was, and it's constantly fascinating for me to look back on. And I ask myself the question quite often, why did it take that?
Mm,
Right? I'm 40 years old. Why didn't I look at my life at any other point and come to the realization that I could do something more? And it's been a fascinating discovery, because what I understood now, or I understand now, I was never picking or choosing my life.
mhm,
I was just accepting and taking what was offered to me.
right.
So every career choice, every job I did, everything was because somebody said, "Hey, you should come do this."
Yeah.
Never once had I looked at life up until that point and go, "What do I want to do? Who do I
Mm,
want to be?
mhm,
How do I want to show up in this world?" And I can promise you, from September 15th, 2017 to now, has been the most fantastic self-discovery, journey I've ever been on in my life. But it took me almost losing everything I have to
yeah.
get to a place where I can finally start meeting myself.
Yeah. So do you really see the stark contrast between the Donnie here today versus the Donnie back in even 2015? So before it all kind of happened.
So, two things that I can tell you. The Donnie Boivin you would have met back in the day was not the real Donnie Boivin. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is, there was work Donnie, there was home Donnie, and they were two
mm,
different people.
right.
Right. And I was always concerned back then that if people saw who I really was, they would never
Mhm,
do business with me. Well, who I really was a country dude who wore ball caps, cussed too much, drank too much,
mhm,
and I never thought that people would do business with that type of person.
right.
Once I launched my company and I was on this path, and what happened for me was, when I got to that dark place of almost losing everything we own, I got to a point where I finally understood that I had no excuses left. When it's
Right.
your own business, there's nobody left to blame. If
Yes.
you're successful, that's your fault. If you're failing, that's your fault. And I'm not saying you're at fault. It's just you got
No.
to take ownership of that moment.
Yes.
And when I got there, I remember the morning exactly that I walked into my bathroom getting ready for the day, and I looked up and I could not look myself in the mirror,
Mm,
because I did not like the dude that was looking back at me. It was the
right.
first time I really started looking at who I was, how I was showing up in the world, and how much my life was this series of excuses
Mhm,
that allowed me to live the life safe, comfortable, and not actually getting adventurous, going and trying new things.
Mhm.
So a funny thing happened to me. I was invited to do a keynote down in Florida a little after my
Mhm.
first year of business. And at this point, I'm still half mentally in that corporate space. I wasn't wearing t-shirts, but I was in blue jeans, but I was in button downs, no ball caps,
Sure.
beard really trimmed, hair done,
Yeah.
not you hardly using any profanity. And right before I went on stage, the gentleman who brought me down, he grabs me by the arm and he goes, "Hey, I need a favor." And I said, "Okay,
Mhm.
what's the favor?" He goes, "When you go on stage, don't go full Donnie." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he
Mm.
goes, "I'm afraid you're going to upstage me and I will
Ooh.
clean it up for your crowd." But what I said is, that was the dumbest effing thing you could have ever said to me in this moment.
Wow.
And I ran out on stage. Now, up to this point, I can tell you the couple of times I was written up in corporate America for saying the word ass. Okay.
Mm. Wow.
Not even a bad word.
Yeah.
And so that was playing in the back of my mind. But I hit that stage and I flung my arms out as wide as they could go. And I said, "Where the F are all my badasses at?" Dude. And 75% of the audience just goes bananas, right? And in that moment, what I realized is those were my people.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I could connect with. Those were the people that I could talk to. And from that day forward, it was t-shirts, ball caps, talking like I talk, showing up like I show up. And that evolution of me
Mhm.
has been freedom, is the
Nice.
best way to put it. I mean, it's a mental freedom. It's allowed me to create financial freedom. It's just
Mm.
allowed me to create the world. And I tell people all the time, it's not about just showing up and being your authentic self. I mean, it is, but you still have to respect the situations.
Yes.
Like typically when I'm on a lot of podcast interviews and I'm telling a lot
Sure.
of stories, you're gonna hear it, come out of my
Yeah.
mouth with all profanities,
Hmm.
but you have to still respect your environment.
Yes. Yeah. What a beautiful journey. And what a beautiful lesson for you to receive permission, be it the gentleman who was speaking before you or afterwards. I can't remember the sequence, but the permission that he gave you to be fully you. How did that feel for you going, okay, I can be fully me, but I'm a little maybe intimidated, a little scared, a little
Well,
fearful because who's seen all of me? Do
well,
I even see all of me?
it was the opposite effect. So he told me not to go full Donnie. So that was a
Sure.
trigger for me, right?
Yes.
Um, at that moment, there was no fear,
Right. Okay.
right? Because this was it was for me, it was a more hold my beer and watch me do this moment.
Right.
Because somebody was telling me not to do it.
Yes.
And that's a surefire way to get me to do something, is either tell
Right.
me not to or tell me I can't.
Mm.
And um I don't know if I absolutely needed that, but if we're keeping track, that's twice in my life since we've talked about my story that
Mhm.
somebody else had to incite or say something to get me to actually move,
Right. Right.
which is always fascinating for me to explore. Why do I have to get to a place where somebody else was telling me what to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yet you'd already spent a good 20 some years, be it in the marine and in this corporate culture of people telling you what to do.
But I was a straight commission sales guy. I didn't think anybody told me what to do. Right. So I didn't make
Right.
any money
Right.
unless I sold anything. So I could work when I wanted to.
Right.
If I didn't work, I didn't get paid. So,
Yeah.
I always felt like I was living life on my terms.
Mm. Okay.
And what I came to realize is somebody was always telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still had quotas to hit. I still had things I had to
Sure.
do. I still had responsibilities, but I thought I was living a
Yeah.
life of freedom. And what I wasn't understanding is I was literally somebody else's retirement plan.
Right.
So getting to a place where I could be me and not care how anybody saw me, that's a pretty damn cool place.
Yeah.
So,
Is it scary for you to be in that space at the same time? Because it's full on. This is full on, Donnie. No hiding behind a ball cap, a jacket, a shirt, or, corporate culture, whatever.
I know it's not scary now. I don't think it was scary then. And I think the reason being is I grew up in a space that there were people in my life that were, you just didn't talk about or do certain things. So, like, I had two patriarchs in my family, and these were both older gentlemen. And I'll clean it up for your show. They were absolutely jerks. Okay, extremely wealthy. Your typical corporate businessman. And so for a long time in my journey, if I had showed up as me, then that version got knocked down to his knees, not physically, just, right. And so, I mean, I remember when I got my commercial printing job, and it was the most money I was ever going to make in my life. And I called up my one uncle, who's one of these patriarchs, and I said, "Hey, I just landed this commercial printing job. I'm going to develop this entire division for this company." And his words over the phone were, "Call me when you get a real job."
Ooh.
Because I was in a sales career, he never saw sales as a real career.
Right.
And so, if I was trying to step into full Donnie, somebody was saying, "Hey, don't do that." And, oftentimes you can see this play out, and my parents weren't this way, but you can see this play out with a lot of parents and stuff, that their own self-limiting beliefs show up in how they speak to their kids.
Sure.
And so this was kind of his fears, projecting on me. So I think all the years, and so throughout my sales career, I struggled selling to that type of individual, the alpha male, over the top type guy. And I also struggled with, I don't ever want to become that person. What's crazy for me is I've always kind of been this more alpha role type person, leadership, and always step into the forefront.
Yeah.
I just was never okay with it. Okay. So when I finally showed up as being me, and now I can do the things I do, I can do it without putting on a show.
Right.
And that's the fun side of it. And that took a lot of fear out of it, because before it was, let me put on a show and show you how awesome and amazing I am. Now it's, let's just have a fun conversation, and I'll meet you at where you're at.
Pretty much like what we're doing today.
For sure. And I promise you, most of my fans and listeners are going to hear this conversation. They're like, I can't believe you stayed that calm this entire freaking interview. You have a very calming presence, my dear.
Thank you.
No. Oh.
So with all of that and all that you've learned about yourself and about others, what do you believe about yourself now? Do you feel it defines who you are?
I think the evolution of me is going to continue to carry on for quite a while, because I am enjoying the ability to use a lot of hard work and to allow it to impact as many people as I have already, and to see that evolve. There's a lot of people out there in the world that are using their talents to take advantage of people, coerce people, manipulate. And so I'm having a lot of fun being the opposite of all of that. Right. And young in my sales career, I would have hung out with all those guys. You know, I would have been the Greg Gary sales guy. Let's get it done at all costs, you know,
Right.
type. But now it's more fun to teach people that there's a better and easier way to do things, where you can go build a business, you can go be a salesperson, you can do all these things and still like yourself at the end of the day. So the fascinating thing for me is, and I tell people all this, that if you want to know if you like the person who's showing up in the moment in this part of your journey, go look in the mirror and say 3 words.
Yeah.
I'm proud forwards of you. And if
Okay.
you can't say I'm proud of you by looking in the mirror,
Mhm.
then whatever you're not proud of is what you got to go get to work on.
Right.
And most people are showing up in life doing and carrying themselves with the weight of knowing they're doing things that does not make them proud.
Mm.
And so for me, that's the self-discovery evolution that's continually, is because there's days I'll feel like I'm not proud of myself and I need to go explore what particularly is happening in the moment for me. And I'm all in most times. It's because even though I have set hours of the day that I work and we shut down the companies, there's
Sure.
still days that I over push myself way harder than I should.
Of
You know,
course.
and that's usually the thing that kicks me mentally.
Yeah. But I think that's part of the nature of anybody who's an entrepreneur and anybody who has that fire in their belly to deliver and be more beyond a dollar.
For sure. I agree with that. I don't agree with the philosophy of work-life balance. I think work-life balance is an absolute myth.
Okay.
And here's why. The only people who are looking for work-life balance are people who hate what they do.
Okay.
Because if you love what you do, and I'm not talking about turning your passion into what you do or your business or company, what I'm talking about is if you love your life,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no need for balance. Everything's great. And I don't want to say like everything's sunshine and rainbows,
Right.
but I love putting in these hours. I love
Yeah.
working to the level I work at. Right.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with my wife,
Sure.
but this business is my life. And
Yeah.
so is she. I don't need balance or separation between the two. Right. It's all one thing. And when people look at it as work and then life, they're forcing themselves to choose
Mm-hmm.
which one they're supposed to like and which one they're supposed to hate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just like the idea of let it all mesh. Be
Yeah.
you in both spaces, show up as you as both spaces, and you won't ever need this idea of work-life balance.
Right.
Do I drive my wife some nuts sometimes being on my phone and working? Of course I do.
Yeah.
Does she get on my case every once in a while? Of course she does.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that, and she knows it's part of the game. And do I make fun of her for, you know, anytime she may answer a work call or anything? Of course I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's part of our intertwined lives. You know,
Yes.
we take vacations, we do all this stuff, but it's not to balance out our lives, because our lives are balanced because we enjoy our lives. We enjoy what we do, you
Right.
know. And most people are looking for that work-life balance because they chose a career they hate,
Yeah.
they have a business they hate, they have a life they hate, and so now they're like, ooh, I need the vacation from that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are the only people that are looking for some sort of work-life balance.
That's an interesting perspective, Donnie. That really is.
It's
That
the right
is.
perspective.
Okay. 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 So what do you believe is your calling? Now you've busted out into the wholehearted, all of you, ball cap and toad.
To teach the world how to create their own freedom. I just happen to do it through business. So as I was building a business, it was the hardest thing I ever done.
Mhm.
You know, I did 4 years of Marine Corps, 20 years straight commission sales, and building a
Yeah.
business was the hardest thing I've ever done. And when I launched the company, there were so many people out there saying, start a company, build a business, anybody can do it. You can create freedom. I mean, I almost felt like entrepreneur became the new MLM crap. And, and so I mean, I honestly took that whole thought process, hook, line, and sinker. I'm like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, I was failing miserably because of a couple of things. And the first and foremost, I had no entrepreneurs in my life. I had no business owners in my life. So I had nobody I could lean on to say, hey, I'm screwing this up. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I had friends and family. And when you tell friends and family I'm screwing it up, what do they tell you? Go get a job. Why are you doing it? Why are you putting yourself through this? It seems like a lot of work, and so I had to learn that I could only share the good stuff with people who were entrepreneur or weren't entrepreneurs and weren't building a business, because they truly are just trying to help you and give advice. It's just crappy advice because that's all they know.
That's right.
And so one of the crazy things I did is I created a Facebook group because I wanted to just be around entrepreneurs. I wasn't even thinking about it from a business mechanism. I just wanted to be around entrepreneurs. Well, as I was in there, I started sharing my screw ups and the things I was doing wrong. And people started asking me questions about their businesses and should they do this? And I went, wait, I don't know what I'm doing. Why are you asking me questions? And so that continually became a thing. And, we've built our entire global brand around the idea of let's help people get to business freedom. Let's help them not create a crappy job for themselves. So for me, I get to do all the fun things like talk about mindset, talk about, your mental health. I get to talk about, being authentically you and showing up and actually liking yourself, all under the guise that I'm teaching you how to build your business and how to get to business freedom. So it's really, really fun that I get to lead with, hey, I bet your business sucks and you've actually created a crappy job and not a company.
Yes.
Let me teach you how to build a business. All the while, we're going to be working on, let's get your mindset taken care of. Let's get you taken care of. And so that's a lot of fun. So I will continue to impact and change the world by teaching them actually how to do this thing called build their company.
Beautiful. What do you think are some of the key attributes that connect you to your purpose that will allow that for others?
I'm crazy enough to believe I can change the world.
Okay.
I'm more tenacious than most. And I have learned over the years that if something scares me, that's usually the universe saying that's the exact direction I should go.
Keep going. Yes.
Yep. I think that curiosity is the thing that builds most businesses. Because I don't think people taste and explore and try new things because we're in a programmed world of you go get a job and that's what you do and that's where you sit. Right. So I have a natural curiosity and I think just a genuine interest in people.
Yeah.
Because I'm fascinated with people's stories and journeys. And usually when I sit across from somebody, especially anybody trying to build a business, within 30 seconds, I can tell them their entire business story and where they're at, what they're doing. And it's because I lived it all. I mean, I know exactly where they're at. And I think the other thing is my ability to completely not care what people think and just get raw and tell them the tough conversations I've had with my wife about almost losing everything, and putting myself out there in that space allows more people to get vulnerable around me quickly, which allows them to free up their time to actually go do the things they need to do.
That's right. Yeah. Gives them permission, because what we know is vulnerability meets vulnerability, right?
Yep. For sure. And I don't think people understand authenticity and what it means, because people are like, oh, you need to be authentic and show up authentically. Well, that doesn't mean you're sharing what you had for breakfast, because honestly, nobody cares.
Right. Especially in social media.
Right. Authenticity is about sharing the stories that will help people wherever they are on their journey that your story is targeted as. So like me sharing the screw ups and losing the business and everything else, I'm speaking to business owners when I share that
Yes.
story, right?
Yes.
And that's what it means to be authentic is you share the stories that's going to resonate with the people that you want to connect with.
Right. So it's almost like, so it's also leading into my next question is the intentions. So the intention of the craft that you have built of authenticity and being bold and vulnerable is offering that invitation to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's changing a philosophical belief.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I look at somebody and I ask them to define sales, well, let's try that. Define sales for me. How would you define it? I'm asking you.
An exchange of a need for a benefit.
How much did your inner energy and body shift as you tried to explain that to me?
I had to wear a different hats, but
Right?
yes, it did.
Yep. Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Everybody does. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You were because you're so into being you, you didn't make such a negative shift that a lot of people do. Most people,
Right.
when you ask them to explain sales, you can feel them go, oh, God, selling.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Sales is nothing more than a conversation
Mm-hmm.
that happens to have an outcome.
But don't all conversations to a certain degree have an outcome?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't define a sales by an outcome or conversation by, or sales is a conversation with an outcome,
Mm-hmm.
people forget that they're supposed to get to the outcome.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't believe in closing the sale.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to like this for all your listeners.
Okay.
I'm not closing anything off.
Yes.
We're opening or starting a relationship.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
So all your woo-woo healers just went, oh my God, the sales guy just said that, right? But it's the truth when you look at it from that perspective. And so what I love is shifting people from thinking about how they think about sales, because sales is traditionally taught that you have to convince or overcome objections or manipulate somebody into buying your stuff.
Right.
That just feels gross.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Your job is to sit across from somebody and go, would I invite them over for Sunday dinner?
Mm-hmm.
And what people will find is if you will look at every conversation in that regard, you will remove 90% of the grease ball out of your sales process.
Right. Yes.
Because what has to happen for you to get to a point where you would invite them to your house for a Sunday dinner, Sunday barbecue, if you're into barbecue, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're into rabbit food. I don't know. Right. But when you can sit across from somebody and really come from a place of, do I like them? Do I want to serve them? Do I want to do business with them? It shifts the entire dynamic of the conversation.
Yes.
And then all you need to understand is what are the absolutes that you need to know about this person before you ever even get to a point of making some sort of offer of wanting to do business.
Right.
So like you need to know, will they invest the energy? Will they invest the time? Will they invest the money? Will they, do the work? Will they, do you like them?
Yes.
And if you understand this dynamics about an individual, you can spend the entire call trying to understand when I invite them to Sunday dinner while you're speaking specifically about their story and the things they do. And all the while you're uncovering, do I think this person will check off all those boxes? And if they won't check off all those boxes, you never get to a point where you have to say, you know what, let me tell you what I do. Right? Because you get this gross shift that happened because now it's in sales mode.
Right.
Right. But if you do it my way, where you're more focused on trying to disqualify the individual,
yes,
now you're going to get to a point where somebody's going to finally look at you and go, I don't know what you have, but I want it.
yes.
When can we get started?
Right.
because you've actually poured into them and provided so much real value. And you've not tried to coerce, manipulate, overcome objections, and do all the greaseballs things. So helping people shift their dynamics to that direction has been a lot of fun to do because it's anti what everybody else in the world teaches.
Right. Right. It's what I'm hearing from you is you're sitting on their side of the table.
Yes, very much so.
You're sitting beside them rather than across from them, where there's this massive divide called this table.
For sure. It's interesting that you say that because, I grew up in the old school sales world, right? Always be close and crush it, get it done. And one of the things I was taught, and I hadn't thought about this in years, one of the things that I was taught is if you walk in. So when I sold commercial printing and I sold to professional buyers of Fortune 500 companies, they would purposely lower the chairs of the salespeople that came in their office.
Wow.
So you automatically sat below them, right? So they could hold a position of power.
Yes.
Sales guys, we knew that going in.
Yes.
So we wouldn't sit in the chair directly across their desk. We would ask them to move over to a table so we could have equal business stature and have nothing in between us, right? It was a sales move. I hadn't thought about my perspective of selling in that same regard. And what we're doing is literally eliminating that tail and that barrier in between us.
Absolutely.
By putting us on their side of the table.
Yeah.
Thanks for making me bring that back up.
Yeah. It's important because there's, regardless of whether it's a sales environment or whether it being a mentorship or a schooling, educational environment, there's often an us and them.
Yes, very much so.
And there's a split. And I want to throw this in just for kicks. The entire world is in a split. Agreed. Of how can we create more separation? We're talking about a table, but the world is talking about something else. But we're not really going to go there. But I kind of want to address it.
I'll address that with one really, really cool thought idea. The way to heal the world right now is with a cup of coffee. Because you put two people sitting across from each other over a cup of coffee and you remove the screen barriers. You remove, the inability to have adult conversations.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the world are actually really good people.
Yes.
No matter their thoughts and beliefs.
Yes.
And when two people actually sit across from each other over a cup of coffee, magic happens. And you realize that people from all walks of life, from all different personalities, religions, and everything.
That's right.
We're all good people.
That's right.
So one cup of coffee for everybody, and we solve a lot of problems.
Absolutely. And we stand side by side because we're eliminating this barrier in between.
Yep.
Just like in the sports analogy, there's a eye to eye look situation happening of a winner and a loser. When you're side to side, that conversation and dialogue is not possible.
For sure. And most times in life, we're taught that perspective that, of
course,
one person is supposed to win, one person is supposed to lose. Yeah. And it's really bad in the sales game because, there's too many people teaching out there, dude. You get that deal, you get that win, That's and right. My thermometer for is that something I should do is, can I look myself in the mirror and be proud of that activity? And that's everything. I'm telling people, the mirror's never going to lie to you. And if you want to know if it's the right decision or not, go look yourself in the mirror and say, should I act this way? Should I be this way? Should I do this thing? Yeah. You can't lie to yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree with that for sure. So what's next?
Right now, I'm on a massive mission to get my name out there as big as possible, because what I consistently find and I consistently hear is, Donnie, more people have got to hear your story. More people have got to hear your message. So we've built the infrastructures inside of my companies that are completely sustainable and 90% will function without my presence, which is
Nice.
something we've been striving for a while. So
Yes.
now it's how do we go and meet and talk to the masses?
Mhm.
So that's a lot of what I'm doing now, is going as big as some of the quote unquote influencers, gurus, and the likes.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to come from a completely different place than they ever have.
Mhm.
And so that's the big mission. That's what we're going to accomplish. We're going to take, two of our brands completely global, and we're already changing how the world networks with one. We're changing how business conferences are done with the other, because we have our badass business summit, and the difference being from what most people see from conferences is we
Yes.
will always give speakers their first shot. Like every time we put on one of our conferences, there's going to be one or two people on stage. This will be their first time ever on stage,
Mm.
because nobody ever gave me a shot as I was up and coming, right? The
Mm.
second thing is all of our speakers will stay through the entire event, and they're going to sit in the crowd with you, right? So these aren't people flying in,
And
to
flying
do
out.
the dog and pony show and getting out.
Yeah.
We design the conferences so you're there actually working on your business, and
Yes.
like you're going to have your laptop open, and when you leave, you're going to have the things
Right.
built as they're taught, not take a ton of notes and then go, oh crap, what was this note that I don't know what it means.
Right.
Right. So we're just continuing to create all the things I wish I had.
Nice.
I mean, even prior to this interview, I went to this event, and within 5 seconds, it was the webinar pitch, crap. And I instantly just left. And I had two of their members send me messages like, why'd you leave already? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not my place. Those aren't my people. Those not the
Right.
people, I want to be around.
Yes.
And I've got way more important things to do than listen to your crap. And it wasn't the answer they were looking for, because
Of course not.
my assistant, I can see my phone, sent me a message already to like, you may want to answer your phone because they're really blowing you up because they're expecting you to be there. I'm like, they'll get over it. Um, so I just want to continue to create that environment where people want to see others succeed,
Mhm.
because we're often so put around environments where everything's this competition, everything's
Yes.
this, let me do better than you. And it's even like our networking groups, you walk in there and
Sure.
it's instant, who do you need to meet, let me get you that person, let me open those doors for you. And
Yes.
we're just continuing to change that dynamics, and you know uh, we're just going to continue to go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger with it. And I do have another book I'm working on after this one
Mhm.
runs its course. It's literally titled Everything My Wife Said That Saved My Life, because I got a series of moments. It's got a little bit stronger title than that, but I cleaned it up.
Thank you.
But it's because there's so many moments where I was either down on myself or something, and she said something, and by God, if that wasn't the right thing I needed to hear in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even down to
That's
when we almost lost the farm, she looked off
right.
at me and said, "Get off my butt and go." She didn't say "but," but she said, "Get off my butt, go sell
Right.
something," and it was the
Right.
exact thing I needed to hear in that moment. You know,
Yes.
so,
That's
but that'll be
hilarious.
one of the books coming up soon. She's like, "You
And the
can't write that book." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're writing that
oh yes, you can.
book."
Yes. Yes. And I think the finale is going to be she's right.
Yes, yes,
Right.
absolutely, right. And you know, um, uh, even I mean that may be something down the line, is where we'll talk about what it's like being married to an entrepreneur and those type of things,
Sure.
because we've been
It's a journey.
together 15, almost 16 years now, and
Mm,
she's done the full run with me, so,
yes,
and stuck by my side through some tough damn moments. So
of course.
um
Yeah.
and I keep telling her someday I'm going to put her butt up on stage and be like, all right, you tell them. You
That's
tell them
right.
how much of a fool and idiot I was doing all this. You tell them, what you went through as I built all this. So the world really gets to hear what it's like to build a business. And yeah,
Sure.
we're crazy to be entrepreneurs and building businesses, but I think
Yeah.
that's craziness is what makes us win.
But it's also a beautiful opportunity for you to share from a very authentic place, a heart-centered place, in your genuineness for the expansion of others, to truly step into what is it they love to do,
Yeah.
rather than being a retirement for somebody else in an
Right.
office.
That's it. That's it.
So keep doing what you're doing, because it
Thank you.
sounds amazing, and I think it's gonna be amazing, not only for you as you project up and out, but for all the individuals who are waiting to hear your story.
Thank you, love. I really, really appreciate that. My goal is when I sit across from somebody, I want them so jazzed up they feel like they can run through a wall.
Yeah.
And the second token, I want to go so big that I create such a wake that
Mm.
other people can just come right up behind me. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're doing
What a
it.
beautiful story.
Thank you, love. Thank you, love.
Beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your insights, but most importantly, your journey and your wisdom.
Thank you so very much. Let me do something really, really quick. So, guys, if you've listened to this and you've hung with us this long and you've enjoyed the conversation, do her a magical thing. And I get to say that on your show, which is fun. And share this show with one other person, because I can tell you, being to have my own podcast, the toughest thing in the world is growing your audience and getting people to listen and hear your stories. So if you got any value out of this, share this show with one other person who you think would get value from her. It literally is like you gave her a virtual hug, and it'll mean the world to her.
Thank you so much for that, Donnie.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.